If there is some sort of a written record, it will be subject to whatever rights of access exist. Now, I have to tell you, we have police officers sitting in the back of the room. If I do something wrong on the job, and there's a record indicating that I've engaged in misconduct, that's public. Anybody else here a public employee? Who's a public employee? Yeah, if you do something wrong on the job and there's a determination to that effect, I can't imagine that you would. That's public. And for years, we have been trying to push through legislation that would deal with people's frustration. And what the law will say, as of February the 2nd, is pretty simple. If a record is scheduled to be discussed during an open meeting, and it's available under FOIL, or if it's a proposed resolution, law, regulation, policy, it's supposed to be posted on the government agency's website if it has the ability to do it, and it has to be made available on request prior to the meeting. To my mind, this is real transparency. We hear the word all the time. It's a buzzword. It don't mean diddly at this point in most situations. But come February 2nd, yeah, before you go to the meeting, in so many instances, you'll be able to find out what the board's going to talk about. Yes, it says that. But we hear it all the time. And too often, we Americans have become, how can I put this nicely, stupid and sheep-like. And we hear these things over and over and over again, and we begin to believe that they're true. Well, it's part of my goal in old age to explode those myths. All of you, you've been to meetings, you hear the word personnel all the time, right? Right? You're shaking your head, yes. You can read the 8 grounds for entry into executive session. It's not there. It's not there. The word personnel doesn't appear anywhere among the grounds for entry into executive session. You can read FOIL from beginning to end. The word personnel isn't there either. It's not there either. Huh, where did this come from? I'm going to make a suggestion. The word personnel should be eliminated from your vocabulary. It's garbage. It's crap. Throw it out. Throw it out. Now, before your board goes into an executive session, first of all, does everybody know what an executive session is? An executive session is defined to mean a portion of an open meeting during which the public may be excluded. To go into an executive session, a simple procedure has to be accomplished in public. 3 elements. Number 1, somebody on the board or council has to introduce a motion in public to close the doors. Number 2, the motion has to indicate what they want to discuss, and we'll get to that in more detail in just a second. And third, the motion has to be carried by a majority vote of the total membership. So just out of curiosity, how many people are on the city council? No, how many people are in total on the city council? 7? Let's say the 2 people are absent, 5 people are present, the vote is 3-2. Doesn't carry, because you always need an affirmative vote of the total membership, 4, in a body consisting of 7, to carry any sort of a motion. So, let's say that the motion is to discuss a personnel matter. Does anybody have a clue that there really is a proper basis for closing the doors? No. And the reality is that there are any number of issues that you might view as personnel matters that have to be discussed in public. Huh. There are others that unquestionably may be discussed in private. Let's think about this. You're talking about the budget? School district? Yeah. School district, school board's talking about the budget, and they say to themselves, things are pretty tight. Can we really afford, do we really need this art teacher position in the elementary school? Well, gee, what if there's only one elementary school and one art teacher? Everybody's going to know whose position it is, right? What do you think? Executive session? No. No. Why? Because the board is considering an issue involving policy. How do we as the governing body choose to allocate public money? Is art really important to the education of our kids? Yes, it's a personnel matter, but no. No basis for closing the doors. On the other hand, you missed the best part, man.
My apologies.
You missed the best part. On the other hand, if the question is, do we keep this art teacher? Do we can this art teacher? Is he or she doing a good job or a bad job? In that situation, there's no doubt but that there is a proper basis for going into an executive session. As we look at the so-called personnel exception, we find out that it doesn't necessarily deal with personnel at all. We also find out that the scope of the exception is limited, the language is precise. And I'll quote it to you. Some of you may know it by heart. Anybody here know it by heart? Come on. The law says that a board can close the doors to discuss the medical, financial, you don't have to take it down, it's all online. It's all in here too. It's here. The board can enter into an executive session to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. So to qualify, the subject has to focus on somebody or some specific corporate entity in relation to one or more of those qualifiers. If you say personnel, nobody knows. And the courts have agreed with our opinions that a motion that refers to personnel matters without more is inadequate. It doesn't cut it. What we've suggested, what the courts have agreed, is that the motion under that provision should include two elements. Number one, inclusion of that keyword particular, so that we know that the focus is on somebody or some corporation. And number two, reference to one of those qualifiers. I move to enter into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person, or something like that. They wouldn't have to name the individual, but if they tell us that much, what they're really saying is, yep, we've read the open meetings law, and unless we're fibbing, we're about to discuss a subject that may properly be considered during an executive session. Yes.